Thirsty Thursday. Tomorrow. Prepare. Dyze In Your House. Exclusively on East Coast Radio.
Representing Staten Island.
Nobody likes me. Nobody likes me. But that's okay, cause I don't like y'all anyway. And I don't like y'all anyway.
We got one goal for the next 2 months. One goal for 2018. And that's to take back the house. And we're only going to do that by going out and voting.
Representing Staten Island.
I mean, I know the civil rights movement didn't exactly end racism, but I thought we were further along than this.
Representing Staten Island.
It's a known fact that the reason I don't have any friends is solely because I'm a liberal who cares about other people and doesn't want to see brown people and women suffer at the hands of old, rich, white men who have been in power for way too long.
Representing Staten Island.
Nazis? Bad. Free press? Good. The most dangerous thing you can do is sit back and think that America has no chance of ever turning into an autocracy or some sort of authoritarian regime when you have a fascist regime on the rise right now, unchecked by Congress, which makes November the most important election of our lives.
Representing Staten Island.
J-Pork's East Coast Radio, Dyze In Your House, J-Pork's podcast. We must resist or we won't exist. Taking it back in November. East Coast Radio for the least heard voices.
Representing Staten Island.
Hey, yo. Who's in the house? Dyze In Your House. What is the word, peeps? What goes on? Welcome back into another Wacky Wednesday edition of Dyze In Your House here on East Coast Radio, exclusively on East Coast Radio for the least heard voices. And if you want to become a East Coast Radio head, all you got to do is go to patreon.com/JPorks and check out the offers we got going on. These offers have been slashed. Like, because Halloween and slashing and costumes and stuff. I thought I had a better joke there. I didn't. I failed you. I'm sorry. Okay. So being that the J-Porks podcast was recorded on heavy amounts of Theraflu, and I was fairly out of it, I didn't get really around to this Rosenstein stuff. And again, and we're going to talk about that in a second, and again it goes back to me having the wrong day to record on, because I recorded Monday morning, pre-9 a.m. Planned to go out Monday evening, a brand new episode of the J-Porks podcast. What happened was, Rosenstein happened, and that news started breaking. So we're going to talk about that in a second, but first I just watched this clown get laughed at the UN General Assembly. Laughed at. World leaders laughing at us. And if that's something that you're okay with, then you are not what America is, what America represents. If you're okay with us being the laughing stock. And the headlines coming out of it are, Trump rejects globalism, emphasizes America first policy approach in speech to UN. How can you reject globalism? I'm using air quotes on globalism because the people that say globalism, and you got a socialism shot in there too, the people that reject things like globalism don't really know what they're talking about. The only reason globalism hasn't been a thing, you know, is just becoming more of a thing as technology advances because technology advances. Like 70 years ago, if I moved to Europe, you were never seeing me again unless I came back. Like now, you can Skype with me every day. The world is a much smaller place these days, and it'd be a lot better if we were friends with everyone. It's like living in a neighborhood that you feel is sketchy. You know what I'm saying? I used to live in Canarsie, Brooklyn, right? East 94th Street, between J and K. Some might call that a sketchy neighborhood. Some might call that a bad neighborhood. I didn't, because I knew everybody, and I knew, you know, I knew what pissed people off and what didn't. And you just don't, you know, when you live in a community, you know, you respect one another. And, like, this world is a community, and I'm sorry, but, like, you know, we should be just focused on, you know, we should be focused on being friendly with everybody besides the countries that are, you know, committing human rights violations, like your boy in Russia. But that's just me. I'm not a foreign policy expert. I'm not, you know, a policy wonk. I'm not a political science major. I'm not anybody besides Jay Porks, host of 2 podcasts here on Least Coast Radio. This one being Dyze In Your House. And that was a perfect little loop that I ended on there for, to end my first thought there. So, the UN General Assembly just happened. This is coming to you midnight. It's a Wacky Wednesday edition. It is recorded on Tuesday. It is coming in a few hours. It is coming to you. We are going to talk about the whole situation. We're not going to talk about Rod Rosenstein as much as we're going to talk about Thursday. It's going to be a thirsty Thursday. This Thursday. Tomorrow. Because at the same time, I mean, because here's what happened. On Monday, word started, well, over the weekend, word started leaking. I retweeted something from Rick Wilson that said, brace for impact tomorrow on Sunday. And I was like, oh, never a slow week. Never. It never is. It never could be. So, word started leaking that Rod Rosenstein was going to leave the Justice Department. Nobody really quite knew what that was. Nobody quite knew if he was going to resign, if he was fired, what the deal was. So what happened was, Rod Rosenstein was summoned to the White House on Monday. And word around the water cooler is that he will not resign and he is forcing Trump to fire him personally. That's, you know, what some analysts would have you believe. Others believe that he's just, you know, gonna wait to talk to Trump on Thursday. Because, you know, they don't have telephones. But anyhow. So Rod Rosenstein still left the White House on Monday. Still Attorney General. Acting Attorney General. Deputy Attorney General. And Acting Attorney General in the Russia investigation. It's weird because Thursday's a weird day to pick to have a meeting. You know, why not Tuesday? I know Trump was giving the speech at the General Assembly. I mean, listen, the New York and DC are not, they're not light years away. If you really want to go, if you really want to talk to him, go see him. Go see him in New York. But why not Wednesday? Why not Friday? It's not, I mean, is there anything going on? Is there anything specific on Thursday that's happening that you might want to shift attention from and onto this summit with Rod Rosenstein, who even conservative pundits like Sean Hannity and Hugh Hewitt are claiming it's a trap to fire Rod Rosenstein. It's a trap to motivate Democrats to vote. And as I said on the Jay Porks podcast, I don't think the Democrats need much more motivation to vote here. Once Kavanaugh is placed on the Supreme Court, there will need to be a check. Hopefully 2 checks. Because I know the Senate is... I don't think the Senate's in play, but there are a lot of close races. A lot of things could happen. So on Thursday, at the same time Kavanaugh is facing accusers accusing him of sexual misconduct when he was 18, you know, before he gets placed on the highest court in the land, the Supreme Court. You know, they don't throw around the word Supreme like a Pizza Hut. Supreme was the pizza. It was it. You know, Supreme. You get it all. That's the Supreme Court. And I'm sorry if I'm of the belief that you should be somebody impeccable. And when Reagan nominated somebody for the Supreme Court, they found out that that person smoked pot occasionally as a youth. And he had to walk back his... He had to pull his nomination back. But somebody is accused of sexual assault, and the Republicans are just pretending like this is no big deal? Meanwhile, they've been crying that we need to move on, that this is obstruction for a week already, when that whole week could have been spent by the FBI investigating these allegations, and it would have been over by now. And you could have found, you know, if instead Kavanaugh is on television. Why isn't Kavanaugh there saying, why can't the FBI investigate this? Please. I will use the same analogy I always use. It's like child pornography. In a sense where if you accuse me of child pornography, being a fan of it, or harboring it on my computer, or something like that, I am going to hand you all of my devices. I am going to beg the FBI to come in and investigate every inch of my life, to prove to people, to exonerate me fully of something there is no chance that I could have ever done. I should have, instead of child pornography, I should use being successful in life as a better example of something I could never do. But the point is taken. If there's nothing there, then who cares? Then what's an investigation? It's a couple of days. Nobody is saying that Robert Mueller should investigate Brett Kavanaugh. Nobody's saying that. Nobody's saying that this needs to take past the midterms. No one is claiming that. No one is trying to obstruct and stop. The Democrats already have reasons why we don't want him on the Supreme Court. We have gambling debts that have disappeared. We have he's going to overturn Roe. He doesn't support unions. It's going to be a Roberts 5 again. There's several reasons. How'd he get on the Federalist Society list? Who funds the Federalists? These are all questions. The torture documents. What are they hiding? What happened in the Bush White House? All of this stuff that he can't answer. These are all reasons to disqualify him. These hearings are about if America and if the Senate and if Congress is ready to take women who are abused, if they're ready to take them seriously. Because that's what we need to find out. He's got a bunch of old white men say, oh, I'm not going to let this ruin his life. Well, I'm not saying throw him in jail, but he should be not on the Supreme Court. He should be shunned from society, exonerated from, not exonerated, he should be extricated, excluded from social clubs, from elite societies. He should be shunned. He shouldn't be able to go out without being told, hey, you're a sexual assaulter. People shouldn't sexually assault other people. Full stop. No excuse. Nobody was young. Are you joking? It's like that time they found those allegations on Merrick Garland. Oh wait, they didn't find anything because they didn't even talk to Merrick Garland because the Republicans were so far up their own ass in not letting Obama put somebody on the Supreme Court. They could have had Kavanaugh. They could have had Gorsuch, could have been the answer to Garland. Now, and I bet you Merrick Garland comes down way more conservative than anybody who the next person being placed on the Supreme Court by Democrats is. Which, by the way, is that ever going to be a thing that happens? Because I'm waiting. Seems we're never really in power when it's time to shine. I'm here to tell you this. Don't get distracted on Thursday. Because here's what's going to happen. Rod Rosenstein's going to go to the White House and he's going to deny that he wrote the... He's going to deny that he was going to wiretap and 25th Amendment Trump. Because I don't believe that he was going to do that. I believe that that story was put in the New York Times to draw up sympathy for firing Rod Rosenstein so it can give him an excuse. I don't think it's real. I side with Sean Hannity, oddly enough, whereas I think that the story was a trap. But at the same time, don't get distracted by that. Because if he fires Rod Rosenstein, or if Rod Rosenstein is no longer the Deputy Attorney General, the Mueller investigation still goes on. And if Robert Mueller gets fired, we will march in the streets. But besides that, there's like dominoes that, you know, indictments that are gonna light up. It's like Mueller has booby-trapped everything. He's like, okay, if I get fired, this boom. Psh, 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 psh. Yeah, that's what, it's gonna happen like that. So the Mueller investigation is going to go forth and is going to reach its conclusion, whatever that may be, however many Democrats are involved, however many people related to Tony Podesta and John Podesta, and how many people worked for Bernie Sanders. Everybody is going to be found out, Democrat, Republican, Independent, Russian, whatever. That is going to be, it is not going to be stopped. And if it is, we will march in the streets. I am ready to march in the streets. I don't work. So we can, you know, do that. Okay. Thursday's focus is Brett Kavanaugh. These hearings, the lies he's going to tell, and Michael Avenatti has an accuser who he wants to bring into the public probably the morning of the hearings. Can somebody say hashtag basta? That'll do, Kavanaugh. Maybe we'll get someone else in here. By we, I mean old white Republicans. So, Thirsty Thursday is happening. That's what we're coining it. Don't get caught up in the Rosenstein stuff. He's probably not going anywhere. In the meantime, keep it locked to Least Coast Radio. J Porks, Dyze In Your House. Huh. J Porks here. And I know I've been a little busy on this Least Coast Radio stuff. Talking about resist, remove, and recreational. But I gotta tell you about one more thing. You should be a Least Coast Radiohead. That's right. And you can become a Least Coast Radiohead just by going to patreon.com/JPorks and check out the offers we have there. There's a low tier, a middle tier, and a high tier. All of those get you bonus content, exclusive personalized artwork, and even a chance to interact with me on a personal level over the phone. We could talk about what's going on in this podcast. We could talk about how we are going to flip these seats blue in November. And we are going to vote like this is our final election, because it might be. Patreon.com/JPorks. Become a Least Coast Radiohead and join the resistance.